talk to you about a virus that is spreading right now. Not in the news, not trending, just quietly spreading while nobody is paying attention. After COVID, the world told itself it was ready for the next one. We built systems, we made plans, and then we forgot. Hantavirus has been here for decades. It killed people in 993, it is killing people now, and most people cannot name a single symptom. This episode is not designed to frighten you. It is designed to inform you, because the difference between knowing and not knowing this virus could be your life. Let me show you what this virus is, where it came from, what it does inside the human body, and why the pattern it follows should concern every single one of us right now.
Hantavirus is not new. It has existed in rodent populations for thousands of years. The virus belongs to a family called Buneviridae. It lives inside deer mice and other rodents without making them sick. The rodent is simply a carrier, a reservoir. The virus multiplies inside the rodent and is shed through its urine, its droppings, its saliva. When a human comes into contact with these materials, the virus crosses the species barrier. And when it does, it behaves very differently than it does inside a rodent. Inside a human, it is a killer. In May of 1993, a young Navajo man collapsed and died in New Mexico. He was 21 years old. He had been completely healthy. Within days, his fiancée died too. Then others. Young, healthy people dying within hours of the first serious symptoms appearing. The Indian Health Service doctors were baffled. They had never seen anything like it. The symptoms started like flu. Then the lungs filled with fluid. Then death. Within weeks, the CDC had identified a previously unknown strain of hantavirus. They named the disease Hantavirus pulmonary syndrome. In a matter of months, 36 people were dead. The mortality rate was 76%. Hantavirus does not spread between humans. This is important to understand. You cannot catch it from another person. You catch it from rodents, specifically from deer mice, which are found across North America, from rats, which are found everywhere, from other small rodents, which exist on every continent. The virus is shed in their droppings, their urine, their saliva. When those materials dry, they become dust. And when that dust is disturbed and becomes airborne, it can be inhaled. You do not need to touch a rodent. You do not need to be bitten. You just need to breathe in a space where infected rodents have been. A cabin that has been closed all winter, a garage, a barn, a shed, a basement, an attic. Anywhere rodents have lived and left their traces. The most dangerous thing about hantavirus pulmonary syndrome is that it begins exactly like the flu. Fever, muscle aches, fatigue, headache, chills. If you felt these symptoms today, you would take paracetamol, go to bed, and wait to feel better. Most people would not even consider going to hospital. And that is exactly what makes this virus so deadly. Because the window between the early flu-like phase and the pulmonary crisis phase is extremely short, between 3 and 5 days. During that window, the virus is multiplying silently, and then suddenly and catastrophically, the lungs begin to fill with fluid. Breathing becomes impossible. The medical team scrambles, and by the time the severity is understood, the patient is already in crisis. When hantavirus enters the human respiratory system, it targets a specific type of cell, the endothelial cells that line the blood vessels of the lungs. These cells are responsible for keeping blood inside the blood vessels and air inside the air sacs. The virus hijacks these cells and causes them to become leaky. Fluid from the bloodstream begins to pour into the air sacs of the lungs. The lungs fill from within. The patient cannot extract oxygen from the air they breathe because the air sacs are filling with fluid. This condition is called non-cardiogenic pulmonary edema. There is no specific antiviral treatment for it. Medical teams can only support the patient with oxygen and ventilation and hope the body defeats the virus before the lungs are overwhelmed.
Every major virus that has crossed from animals to humans in the last 50 years has followed the same pattern. Hantavirus has not changed. What has changed is how close we are living to the animals that carry it. COVID showed us that a virus crossing from animals to humans can change everything in weeks. What I want to show you next is the pattern. Because once you see it, you cannot unsee it. And it is happening right now.
COVID-19 emerged in late 2019. Within 3 months, it had reached every country on Earth. Within 6 months, it had killed hundreds of thousands of people. The world had been warned. Scientists had published papers. Governments had received briefings. Simulations had been run. And when it arrived, the world was still not ready. Now, 4 years on, those lessons are fading. The emergency stockpiles are being depleted. The surveillance systems are being defunded. The public health infrastructure that was briefly strengthened is weakening again. Scientists who study emerging infectious diseases are watching this with deep concern. Because the conditions that produced COVID-19 have not been resolved. They have intensified. Scientists who study emerging infectious diseases have identified a clear and consistent pattern in how these viruses move from animals to humans. Step 1. The virus exists harmlessly in an animal population, a reservoir host. Step 2. Human activity changes the relationship between humans and that animal population. Deforestation brings people into contact with new wildlife. Urbanization brings wildlife into contact with human settlements. Climate change moves animal populations into new territories. Step 3. The virus finds a new host: humans. Step 4. If conditions are right, it spreads. This pattern has repeated itself with HIV, with SARS, with MERS, with Ebola, with COVID-19. And scientists monitoring rodent populations and the hantavirus strains they carry are watching the conditions for Step 2 accelerate right now. As of 2026, hantavirus cases are being reported across multiple regions. In the United States, the CDC continues to document cases primarily in the western states where deer mouse populations are highest. In South America, hantavirus strains particular to that continent continue to cause outbreaks, particularly in Argentina, Chile, and Brazil. In Europe, Pumala-virus, a European strain of hantavirus, has caused thousands of cases in Scandinavia, Germany, and France in recent years. In Asia, Korean hemorrhagic fever, caused by a different hantavirus strain, continues to affect thousands of people annually. This is not a rare disease. It is a consistently present threat that simply does not receive the media attention of more dramatic outbreaks.
I am not here to cause panic. Panic is the enemy of good public health decision-making. The scientific community has been watching the conditions for the next major zoonotic outbreak for years. Hantavirus may not be the next pandemic pathogen, but it is a documented example of exactly the kind of virus that could be. What I want to leave you with is not fear, it is knowledge, because knowledge is the only real protection any of us has against something we cannot see.
Why urbanization is increasing risk. The relationship between human expansion and rodent populations is one of the most consequential and least discussed environmental stories of our time. As humans build into previously wild areas, they displace the predators that keep rodent populations in check. Owls, hawks, foxes, coyotes. When these predators are displaced, rodent populations explode. A single pair of mice can produce 5 to 10 litters per year, with 5 to 8 pups per litter. Without predation, a local rodent population can double within weeks. And as climate change pushes winters shorter and warmer in many regions, rodent populations that would previously have been reduced by cold weather are surviving in greater numbers year-round. More rodents means more hantavirus. More hantavirus means more human exposure. The good news about hantavirus is that it is preventable. Unlike airborne diseases that spread between humans, there is a clear and effective set of actions that dramatically reduce your exposure risk. The core principles are straightforward. Reduce rodent access to your home. Seal any gaps around pipes and cables where they enter the building. Steel wool, sealant. 30 minutes of work that closes the most common entry point. Store food in sealed metal or heavy plastic containers. Give rodents nothing to eat, and they have no reason to stay. If you find evidence of rodent activity in any enclosed space, put on nitrile gloves and an N95 mask before you enter. These 2 items, 30 seconds to put on, the barrier between safety and exposure. Never sweep rodent droppings dry. Never. Spray first with a bleach solution. Wait 15 minutes, then wipe, then double bag. Sweeping dry releases the virus into the air you are breathing. Ventilate any closed space before entering. Open the windows. Wait 30 minutes. The concentration of any airborne particles drops significantly with airflow. These actions cost almost nothing. They require no specialist knowledge, and they work. The scientific consensus on pandemic risk is not speculation. It is data. The Global Virome Project estimated in 2018 that there are approximately 1.6 million unknown viruses in mammal and bird populations worldwide. Of these, an estimated 600,000 to 800,000 have the potential to infect humans. We have characterized fewer than 1% of them. The question that scientists ask is not whether another major pandemic will occur. The question is which virus it will be and whether we will be ready when it comes. The conditions that produced COVID-19 have not changed. They have worsened. Deforestation continues at record rates. Urban expansion continues. Climate change continues to shift animal populations. And the global investment in pandemic preparedness remains a fraction of what scientists say is needed. This is not alarmism. This is the documented scientific consensus of the people whose entire professional lives are dedicated to understanding these threats before they reach us. If you have had possible exposure to rodents or their droppings, and you develop flu-like symptoms within 1 to 5 weeks of that exposure, you need to tell your doctor specifically about the potential rodent exposure. This is critical because Hantavirus pulmonary syndrome in its early phase is clinically indistinguishable from influenza. A doctor who does not know about the rodent exposure will treat you for flu and send you home. A doctor who knows about the exposure will order the blood tests that can identify hantavirus infection. Tell your doctor about the rodent exposure. Those 4 words could be the difference between early identification and crisis. The early window is everything. Patients who are identified in the early phase and receive aggressive supportive care have a significantly better chance of survival than those who deteriorate at home and arrive at hospital already in crisis. Early identification is not a guarantee of survival, but it is the best tool we have. Use it.
Hantavirus is not going away. The conditions that enable it are intensifying, and the global systems designed to protect us from the next pandemic are not where they need to be. I am not telling you this to frighten you. I am telling you this because the gap between what scientists know and what the public knows is dangerous. Seal your home against rodents. Know the symptoms. Tell your doctor about any potential exposure. These 3 things cost nothing and could save your life. The next pandemic pathogen may not be hantavirus, but it will almost certainly come from an animal. Nobody told you this. Now you know it, and knowing it changes something. Subscribe for one health fact every Thursday that your doctor never has time to explain.